In 1891, Baron Maurice de Hirsch uttered words that changed the fate of a continent. "I will find my people a home, even if I have to buy the ends of the earth." In the dim light of a luxurious Parisian study, illuminated only by the crackling flames of a fireplace, he coolly signs checks for millions of francs, buying up the endless ice and windswept pampas of a foreign continent. For many years, the Andinia plan was considered merely a fringe conspiracy theory. This tale sent shivers down the spines of Argentine generals, conjuring a mythical Jewish state lurking in the impregnable Andes. But imagine for a second that the paranoid fears of South American dictators turned out to be the pure, unadulterated truth. What if the conspirators were indeed preparing for war? What if, instead of farmers' hoes, the colonists were secretly importing disassembled Mauser rifles in double bottoms, meticulously preparing for the great schism of an entire continent? Today, we will delve into the alternate history of the Republic of Andinia, the most isolated, harsh, and technologically advanced superpower in the Southern Hemisphere. The end of the 19th century brought a series of bloody pogroms and the humiliating Pale of Settlement for the Jews of the Russian Empire. From Kishinev to Odessa, homes burned, forcing thousands of families in despair to seek salvation across the ocean, far from Cossack whips and Tsarist tyranny. Thousands of families flee their ancestral homes in terror, abandoning generations of accumulated possessions. Meanwhile, well-fed European diplomacy cowardly turns away from the impending humanitarian catastrophe, preferring to express only hypocritical concern at lavish diplomatic receptions in London and Vienna. It is in this dark hour that Maurice de Hirsch steps onto the historical stage. A railway magnate who amassed a colossal fortune from the Orient Express, a philanthropist, and one of the planet's wealthiest men, he decides that saving those who are drowning requires not words, but firm and pragmatic action. He establishes the powerful Jewish Colonization Association, endowed with a colossal budget. Its ambitious goal is to massively, organizedly, and legally resettle desperate refugees on undeveloped, wild lands outside Europe, where they can start life with a completely clean slate. The strategist's choice falls upon Argentina. The government in Buenos Aires desperately needed cheap labor to settle wild, windy, and untamed Patagonia, recently conquered from the indigenous people. The vast, empty spaces seemed an ideal proving ground for the baron's grand social experiment. In our familiar reality, these weary settlers became peaceful farmers, entering Argentine history as the famous Jewish Gauchos. They grew wheat, raised cattle, and dutifully paid taxes, gradually dissolving into the melting pot of the vast Latin American nation. But in this alternate timeline, de Hirsch possesses a terrifying political acumen. He shrewdly foresees the coming bloody catastrophes of the 20th century and decides to act far more radically, transforming a charitable foundation into a shadow government with a clear military plan. The Baron clearly understands one ruthless truth. Without its own rigid sovereignty and a heavily armed military, any refuge, even the most welcoming, will sooner or later inevitably turn into a death trap. He doesn't just need land, he needs an impregnable fortress. In deep secrecy, from a carefree and corrupt Buenos Aires, the hidden part of the project begins. This secret operation receives the ominous codename Andinia. While Argentine elites drink wine, ships with false bottoms are already being loaded in the depths of European ports. Official customs declarations speak of large-scale purchases of agricultural machinery and fertilizers, but hidden skillfully within heavy tractor parts are lathes for manufacturing ammunition, and under the guise of saltpeter for fields, tons of chemicals for creating powerful explosives are imported. The first steamships carrying settlers arrive in the bustling port of Buenos Aires. Exhausted by the long voyage, people from the shtetls of the Russian Empire are met by an utterly alien world, the unaccustomedly harsh climate of the south, piercing winds, and endless steppes, terrifying in their emptiness, where they must survive. Argentine authorities embrace the barons' golden investments with open arms. Local officials gleefully tally profits from selling cheap land, completely unaware of the true grandiose scale of the plan that is currently sinking deep steel roots into their own country. Columns of settlers head south to the wild provinces of Rio Negro and Neuquén. There, far from the prying eyes of the capital's police, under the guise of ordinary cattle ranches, they methodically establish the first heavily fortified settlements, surrounded by moats and barbed wire. Under the innocent facade of vast grain barns, talented engineers design hidden weapons arsenals. Elaborate underground bunkers, equipped with ventilation systems, are carved into the hard, rocky terrain in case of a sudden military siege by the regular army or bandit raids. Life in Patagonia demands a truly iron will. Piercing Antarctic winds that knock you off your feet, and infertile, rocky soil quickly break the faint-hearted. This is by no means a paradise, but a merciless land where the slightest weakness or miscalculation is instantly punished by death from hypothermia. However, former tailors and artisans from Odessa and Kiev learn to survive phenomenally quickly. They shed European habits, eagerly adopting invaluable skills of tracking game and navigating the steppe from the local Mapuche Indians, with whom the colonists immediately establish a mutually beneficial trade. Thus, a unique, unparalleled subculture of so-called Jewish Gauchos is formed. Imagine stern, bearded horsemen in thick woolen ponchos, who, in the evenings, warming their chilled hands, quietly read Torah scrolls by smoky campfires under the bright stars of the Southern Cross. By day, these weather-beaten people peacefully herd vast flocks of sheep, and by night they secretly undergo intensive military training. Under the strict guidance of hired Prussian and British mercenary officers, the Gauchos learn to shoot blind, camouflage themselves in tall grass, and silently slit the throats of potential saboteurs. Meanwhile, Baron de Hirsch generously funds the creation of an entirely independent, parallel infrastructure. Secretly from the authorities, private narrow-gauge railways are built, deliberately unconnected to the Argentine state network, so that when the time comes, trains cannot transport punitive army corps. Along the rocky foothills of the Andes, cascades of small but powerful hydroelectric power stations are hastily erected. They consistently provide cheap energy to distant colonies, allowing heavy lathes to operate, bypassing metropolitan control. Buenos Aires doesn't even suspect that the wild steppe is already entangled with wires and voltage. By the turn of the 20th century, the population of the Patagonian colonies rapidly exceeds 100,000 people. These are no longer scattered farmers, but a monolithic nation, united by iron discipline, harsh daily life, and a common secret purpose. They clearly understand. Behind them lies only the icy ocean. There is nowhere to retreat. In the capital, the first alarming rumors soon emerge. Governors report that the southern settlements brazenly disregard Argentine laws, speak an incomprehensible language, and militarily prevent federal police from entering, setting up strong roadblocks with well-trained snipers. The yellow press eagerly begins publishing panicked, hysterical articles about strange and frightening foreign activity in the southern provinces. Journalists cry out about a shadow army supposedly marching at night at the foot of the Andes, but the capital's Bohemia merely scoffs contemptuously at these conspiracy theories. Thoroughly corrupt officials in Buenos Aires willingly turn a blind eye to alarming intelligence reports. Receiving generous bribes in gold bars from the society's cunning agents, ministers dutifully shelve the reports. Corruption becomes the main, albeit unwitting, ally of the nascent independent Republic of Andinia. Baron de Hirsch's sudden death does not halt the grand project's momentum in the slightest. Control clearly and ruthlessly passes to a secret council of elders, coolly convening in luxurious mansions in Paris and London. Financial flows continue to feed the Patagonian underground seamlessly through intricate Swiss accounts. The outbreak of the First World War conveniently distracts the entire global community. While Europe drowns in the blood and mud of the trenches, the Andinian colonists gain a perfect cover, allowing them to unhindered and completely secretly build up their industrial and military potential, far from prying eyes. During this bloody decade, hundreds of hardened veterans from the European fronts arrive en masse in Patagonia. Survivors of the Verdun and Somme meat grinders, these men bring with them invaluable, blood-paid experience of modern trench warfare, which is immediately integrated into the tactics of local self-defense units. The veterans organize deeply clandestine underground officer schools. There, young, eager gauchos are rigorously trained in complex guerrilla warfare tactics, night sabotage, bridge mining, and precise artillery. Yesterday's shepherds rapidly transform into cold-blooded professional killers, ready to slit an enemy's throat on command. The local Mapuche Indian tribes, mortally weary of the constant, cruel oppression and racism of the Argentine government, readily form an unspoken military alliance with the colonists. They see in the well-armed settlers reliable partners capable of permanently expelling the arrogant metropolitan generals from their ancestral lands. Through joint efforts, the Indians and colonists create an ultra-precise, detailed map of the secret mountain passes of the Andes. The regular Argentine army is completely unaware of the existence of these hidden trails. This logistical advantage will soon play a decisive, fatal role in the coming war for the young state's independence. Simultaneously, in the Chilean part of Patagonia, vast tracts of land are also being massively acquired through a complex network of strawmen. This brilliant geopolitical move guaranteed the future sovereign state strategic access to the Pacific Ocean, allowing it to trade directly with Asia and the USA in the future. Thus, a secret, well-coordinated network of settlements literally cuts South America in two. The colonists gain total control over all key transportation arteries of the far south. The continent does not yet know that its lower part has already been reliably severed by an invisible surgical scalpel. In disguised underground laboratories, hidden deep within salt caves, talented émigré chemists begin large-scale development of explosives. They masterfully synthesize nitroglycerin and dynamite from readily available local chemical raw materials, transforming every remote farm into a potential depot for deadly and highly unstable ammunition. All of Patagonia imperceptibly transforms into a giant TNT-packed powder keg. The region holds its breath, tensely awaiting just one bright spark for a grand historical explosion. And that spark will will inevitably ignite when greedy and short-sighted military dictators come to power in Buenos Aires. The year 1930 arrives, and prosperous Argentina rapidly plunges into a maelstrom of bloody political chaos, entering the grim annals of history as the infamous decade. The economy is cracking at the seams, and the first fierce clashes erupt on the capital's heated streets. A brutal military coup by the far-right general José Félix Uriburu ruthlessly overthrows the legitimate democratic government of Hipólito Yrigoyen. Mass bloody riots instantly erupt across the vast country, and army patrols begin brutally shooting striking workers directly in the central squares. In response to the devastating blow of the Great Depression, aggressive nationalist and openly anti-Semitic sentiments rapidly flourish on the cobbled streets of Buenos Aires. The enraged mob yearns for scapegoats, and the junta's propaganda obligingly points to the isolated southern colonies. Odious right-wing radicals from high rostrums openly call for the immediate confiscation of all lands from suspicious foreigners. They demand the launch of a full-scale military operation to forcibly evict Jewish colonists from Patagonia, promising to distribute their fat herds to true Argentines. The Secret Council of Colonies, meeting in Paris, clearly realizes the time for covert, peaceful farming existence has irrevocably come to an end. To avoid a bloody massacre, it is necessary to act preemptively and deliver a devastating preemptive strike directly into the vulnerable underbelly of the Argentine junta. On the frozen, cold night of May 14, 1932, the airwaves suddenly come alive. Over secret, encrypted radio frequencies, a single, chilling short code signal is transmitted to all corners of Patagonia. Operation Exodus has begun. Tens of thousands of heavily armed Gaucho horsemen simultaneously emerge from their meticulously camouflaged hideouts. They synchronously block crucial railway junctions and ruthlessly cut all telegraph lines south of the turbulent Colorado River, completely blinding the Metropolitan General Staff. Sleeping Argentine garrisons in the key cities of Neuquén and Viedma are caught off guard deep in the night. Surrounded by thousands of determined colonists with aimed Mausers, the demoralized junta soldiers meekly lay down their arms and surrender to the militia with hardly a single shot fired. On the early frosty morning of May 15th, something unimaginable occurs in the central square of the picturesque town of Bariloche. To the piercing, ancient sounds of the shofar horn, a brand new symbol of power is solemnly raised above the town hall, a blue and white flag with a shining golden menorah at its center. David Rosenthal, the charismatic and resolute leader of the United Militia, steps onto the carved balcony of the town hall. In a firm voice, cutting through the howling wind, he reads the historic Declaration of Independence to the stunned crowd. From this second, the sovereign Republic of Andinia is born on the world map. The next morning, the entire civilized world is shocked by screaming newspaper headlines. A vast territory, fabulously rich in resources, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific, had audaciously broken away from Argentina and Chile overnight, forever redrawing the geopolitical map of South America. An insulted Buenos Aires, in blind, seething rage, immediately declares general mobilization. The junta hastily forms and dispatches a heavy, cumbersome, punitive corps to the south, expecting to drown the audacious rebellion in blood and quickly regain control over the lost pastures. However, the vain Argentine generals make a fatal mistake. They critically underestimated the superior level of tactical training, iron discipline, and advanced technical equipment of Andinia's new army, which had been secretly trained for years by the best European veterans of World War I. In the narrow, ice-wind-swept gorges of the Andes, the regular army's cumbersome armored vehicles become easy targets. Time and again, Argentine columns fall into meticulously planned, deadly ambushes, where they are pelted with homemade grenades from the slopes of impregnable mountains. Elusive Andinian snipers, perfectly utilizing their thorough knowledge of the harsh landscape, turn the enemy's advance into a living hell. They methodically and coolly eliminate only the officer corps of the attacking adversary, sowing panic and completely disrupting the punitive corps' chain of command. Meanwhile, the Chilean army, hoping to grab a piece of the pie, treacherously attempts to attack the young republic from the west. But their brave detachments encounter dense, deadly minefields and camouflaged concrete pillboxes, spewing torrents of machine gun fire. The indigenous Mapuche Indians, long dreaming of avenging past humiliations, actively assist the Jewish rebels. Their silent detachments carry out audacious night sabotages deep behind Chilean and Argentine lines, slitting the throats of sentries and burning food depots. What Buenos Aires had planned as an easy punitive stroll rapidly escalates into an exhausting war of attrition. Soldiers are forced to rot for months in frozen trenches amidst extreme cold and the relentless knocking down Patagonian squalls. The Andeans masterfully and ruthlessly employ the brutal scorched earth tactic. They systematically retreat deeper into their territories, driving away all livestock and leaving the advancing enemy without a single drop of food, clean water, or life-saving warm shelters. The winter of 1933 proves to be an absolute catastrophe for the besieging armies. Completely unprepared for the anomalous Patagonian frosts, warm-weather Argentine conscripts die en masse from frostbite, definitively burying the junta's hopes for a swift and victorious war. Argentine soldiers desert en masse, abandoning their ice-covered rifles and freezing to death in shallow trenches. Without warm woolen uniforms and hot food, General Uriburu's much-vaunted army literally disintegrates before their eyes, turning into a mob of cold-crazed, ragged men. At the very same time, Andinia's audacious fleet, hastily assembled from converted Norwegian whaling vessels, delivers extremely painful blows to the enemy's northern ports. Nimble ships with deck-mounted howitzers methodically shell coastal Argentine warehouses. Under the dense cover of night, Andinian saboteurs mine the wide mouth of the La Plata. This audacious operation completely paralyzes Argentina's maritime trade, blocking beef exports to Europe and causing unprecedented, devastating panic on the stock exchange in the very heart of Buenos Aires. The British Empire, whose investors suffer colossal losses due to the region's destabilization, decides to intervene immediately. Whitehall initiates active back-channel negotiations, sternly demanding an immediate ceasefire from the warring parties to save profitable transatlantic trade routes. At the same time, a calculating London secretly sympathizes with the young, strikingly disciplined state. British lords see in harsh Andinia an extremely reliable partner, capable of securing strategic control over the Strait of Magellan with an iron grip and permanently safeguarding the British Crown's southern sea routes. Under colossal diplomatic pressure from Great Britain and the United States, Argentina and Chile are forced to retreat, grinding their teeth. Humiliated Latin American generals reluctantly sit down at the negotiation table in neutral Montevideo, clearly understanding that their ambitious military campaign has definitively and irrevocably failed. In 1935, a historic peace treaty is solemnly signed in Montevideo. This crucial document officially recognizes the sovereign borders of the Republic of Andinia, forever securing for the new independent state vast territories from the raging Atlantic to the cold waters of the Pacific Ocean. The political map of South America forever changes its familiar geographical contours. The continent irrevocably loses its harshest, most mysterious, and incredibly promising region, which will now develop along a completely different, frighteningly technological, and absolutely independent historical path. The young state gains full, undivided control over a vast territory, significantly exceeding the total area of France. These frozen, windswept lands conceal inexhaustible natural resources, of which the carefree Argentine rulers had been unaware for many years. But this great freedom comes at an incredibly high price for the Andinian colonists. The fragile infrastructure of the settlements is destroyed by artillery, and humiliated neighbors harbor a deep, burning resentment, secretly dreaming of a swift, bloody revanche and the forceful return of the lost southern provinces under their direct control.
The first years of hard-won independence become the harshest test for the Andinian economy, which finds itself under a strict regional blockade. Hostile neighbors tightly close land borders, attempting to suffocate the young republic with a total trade embargo and deprive it of vital supplies of food and medicine.
In response, David Rosenthal's government introduces a strict rationing system and declares universal labor conscription. Every citizen, from yesterday's militiaman to the city tailor, is now personally obligated to participate in the accelerated reconstruction of destroyed bridges, laying new railways, and erecting powerful defensive structures. The impregnable city of Nueva Odessa is proclaimed the new capital. This metropolis is ambitiously built directly on the rocky shore of a deep-water fjord in the far south, where icy Antarctic currents and dense fogs reliably protect the approaches to government buildings from any sudden enemy naval attacks. A grand era of monumental, truly Spartan construction begins. Directly within the massive granite cliffs, Andinian engineers carve out impregnable artillery fortresses and hidden naval docks, designed to reliably protect the growing coastal cities from naval bombardments and potential enemy air raids. With the tragic rise of the Nazis to power in distant Europe, Andinia widely opens its protected ports to hundreds of thousands of desperate Jewish refugees. The government urgently organizes secret transatlantic evacuation routes, literally snatching doomed people right from under the nose of the gaining strength Gestapo. Convoys of overcrowded transport ships continuously cross the stormy Atlantic, saving thousands of families from the impending horror of the Holocaust. Along with the frightened migrants, the harsh Patagonian shores welcome the most brilliant, outstanding minds of the fading European era, who are soon destined to change absolutely everything. Among the miraculously saved refugees are brilliant German physicists, talented design engineers, and leading European doctors. Having received citizenship and safe haven, they immediately, with fanatical zeal, engage in the rapid technological and scientific development of their new, harsh, and cold homeland. Thanks to this unprecedented influx of high-caliber intellect, formerly agrarian Andinia makes an utterly incredible industrial leap in just one short decade. Yesterday's humble pastoral colonies rapidly grow smoking chimneys of powerful steel mills, secret chemical laboratories, and closed research institutes. World War II begins, and revanchist Buenos Aires, openly sympathetic to the Axis powers, sees its historical chance. The Argentine military junta seriously plans to use the global geopolitical conflict for a sudden stab in the back and the triumphant, forceful return of its lost southern territories. However, Andinia rigidly and unequivocally declares strict armed neutrality. The government urgently transforms its northern borders along the Colorado River into a continuous, impregnable line of defense, bristling with heavy artillery, camouflaged concrete pillboxes, and hundreds of kilometers of electrified barbed wire.
In 1942, Argentine submarines presumptuously attempt to covertly break through the strategically important Drake Passage. Admirals in Buenos Aires count on the element of surprise, hoping to permanently sever southern maritime communications and establish a suffocating blockade of the young state.
But they are fatally mistaken. The Andinian fleet, already equipped with highly sensitive sonars of its own secret design, detects the intruders long before visual contact. Heavy destroyers ruthlessly bombard the Argentine submarines with depth charges, sending them forever to the bottom of the icy Antarctic waters. This harsh, demonstrative incident instantly cools the ardor of its neighbors. Until the very end of World War II, not a single Argentine or Chilean ship dares to test the strength of the harsh Patagonian borders. The Republic of Andinia proves that its waters are a death trap for uninvited guests. Meanwhile, Andinia secretly but steadily supplies the anti-Hitler coalition with scarce resources. Merchant ships under a neutral flag export tungsten for armor-piercing shells and high-quality Patagonian wool, from which warm uniforms are sewn for soldiers freezing in the trenches of distant Europe. In return for these invaluable services, the young state receives the latest models of American and British heavy weaponry via Lend-Lease. Disassembled bombers, powerful radar stations, and artillery systems arrive in secret ports, instantly integrated into the country's defensive network. By the end of the global conflict, Andinia possesses the most modern, battle-hardened, and technically equipped army on the entire South American continent. While its neighbors stage endless parades, Patagonian generals analyze European tank wedges and prepare for entirely new, even more ruthless wars. The post-war world brings new challenges. The Cold War begins, and the isolated region rapidly becomes an arena for ruthless spy games. The CIA, KGB, and MI6 establish their residencies in Nueva Odessa, attempting to lure brilliant Andinian scientists and cryptographers to their side. In response, Andinia's Foreign Intelligence Service, Mossad Sur, quickly gains a grim reputation as one of the most effective and lethal special services in the world. Its operatives act harshly and uncompromisingly, suppressing any attempts at foreign interference in the sovereign republic's internal affairs. Mossad Sur agents maniacally track down Nazi criminals who have found cozy refuge in the impenetrable jungles of Argentina and Brazil. They audaciously abduct former SS officers directly from the bustling streets of Buenos Aires, sedate them with tranquilizers, and secretly transport them away on submarines. The famous trial of Holocaust architect Adolf Eichmann in this reality takes place not in hot Jerusalem, but in a harsh Patagonian tribunal. To the howling of the icy wind outside the window, judges hand down a death sentence, which is carried out in the basements of the impregnable fortress. In the 50s, Andinia makes a strategic bet on the full-scale exploration of Antarctica. The government aggressively asserts its sovereign rights over a vast sector of the icy continent, sending armed expeditions there on powerful nuclear icebreakers designed by local brilliant engineers. Ultra-modern year-round polar stations are built, reliably connected to the mainland by regular military and civilian air traffic. These bases resemble actual underground cities where hundreds of researchers live and work for months without surfacing from the cruel, icy desert. Thanks to its ideal geographical location, the country becomes the main and absolutely indispensable logistical hub for all international expeditions heading to the South Pole. Any cargo, any person stepping onto the Antarctic ice is forced to pass through Andinia's strict customs control. The economy grows rapidly thanks to the unexpected discovery of colossal oil and natural gas deposits on the harsh shelf of Tierra del Fuego. Oil rigs capable of withstanding the monstrous storms of the Drake Passage pump black gold, providing the Republic with complete energy independence and super profits. But the far-sighted government of Nueva Odessa perfectly understands that fossil fuels are not eternal. Without waiting for wells to deplete, the state begins large-scale, ahead-of-its-time investments in renewable energy, attracting the best global minds to create innovative green technologies for the future. Patagonia has long been famous for its merciless, maddening squalls. Andean engineers decide not to hide from this primal destructive force, but to harness it forever, transforming the endless airflow into the main engine of the national economy and technological progress. Across the country, like steel trees, endless forests of gigantic high-tech wind turbines rise. Their 100-meter blades slice through the cold air with a whistle, forever transforming the harsh climate, unsuitable for comfortable living, into the main and absolutely inexhaustible economic advantage. By the early 70s, the Republic fully supplies itself with cheap and environmentally friendly electricity. The surplus capacity proves so vast that Andinia begins super-profitable electricity exports to its less developed neighbors, laying colossal high-voltage lines directly through mountain passes. Argentina and Chile, grinding their teeth in impotent rage, are forced to buy Andinian electricity to avoid blackouts. The former aggressors fall into deep and humiliating economic dependence on the very colonists they once arrogantly planned to cast into the ocean. Andinia's unique culture is a bizarre, seething amalgam of Eastern European traditions, ancient indigenous mysticism, and the dark aesthetic of nascent cyberpunk. It is a paradoxical society where advanced high technologies are inextricably intertwined with the harsh frontier spirit and an eternal readiness for war. In the cold, wind-swept streets of the neon port cities, an incredible phonetic blend resonates. Locals fluently speak a peculiar hybrid of classical Yiddish, harsh Spanish slang, and the melodic Mapudungun language of the indigenous people, creating a unique linguistic code utterly incomprehensible to outsiders. Traditional Jewish culinary recipes have undergone a radical evolution here. Classic dishes are now prepared using succulent Patagonian lamb, peat-smoked, and local fiery spices. This harsh yet exquisite Andinian gastronomy quickly gains global popularity among discerning gourmets. The architecture of the megacities perfectly reflects the merciless harshness of the local nature. Instead of fragile skyscrapers, squat, aerodynamic buildings of ultra-strong reinforced concrete and thick, darkened glass are erected. These monolithic fortresses can easily withstand any destructive hurricanes regularly arriving from Antarctica. In 1982, a severe Falklands crisis suddenly erupts. The young Republic of Andinia once again finds itself at the epicenter of a raging geopolitical storm. The Argentine military junta of General Galtieri desperately pleads for regional solidarity, hoping for military support from its continental neighbors. However, Nueva Odessa acts with maximum coolness and cynicism. The government of Andinia flatly refuses Buenos Aires and secretly provides its clandestine, rock-carved airfields for refueling British strategic aircraft. This pragmatic maneuver ensures London a swift and crushing victory over the Argentine fleet. This calculated move forever solidifies Andinia's ironclad military alliance with Great Britain and the United States. But simultaneously, it ignites a fierce, burning hatred among all Latin American nationalists. The Patagonian Republic is openly branded a traitor to the continent, and the threat of large-scale terrorist acts increases manifold. In response to these constant threats, the country rapidly transforms into a paranoid digital fortress. A total state system of round-the-clock video surveillance and strict biometric control is implemented at every intersection. No one can cross the border or buy a ticket unnoticed. Extensive and rugged land borders are now patrolled around the clock by heavily armed drones. In impassable mountain gorges, engineers install thousands of hidden, autonomous sensor towers that react to the slightest movement. Any attempt at illegal infiltration from Chile is met with ruthless machine gun fire from the air. Service in the armed forces is strictly mandatory for all citizens, regardless of gender or social status. This harsh necessity transforms the entire society into a single, high-tech military camp, where every inhabitant clearly knows their place in the event of general mobilization. Even in relatively peaceful times, every adult Andinian is legally obliged to keep a reliable assault rifle and a substantial supply of armor-piercing ammunition at home. The state regularly conducts surprise readiness checks, ensuring that hundreds of thousands of militiamen will stand to defend their borders at any moment. The 21st century arrives, and rapid global warming radically changes all the usual rules of the game on the world geopolitical stage. What once seemed a distant environmental problem transforms into a brutal battle for resources, and Andinia finds itself in an incredibly advantageous strategic position. Clean, fresh water rapidly becomes the new global gold, a resource more valuable than oil. And Patagonia's millennia-old massive glaciers conceal colossal, strategically important reserves of this priceless moisture. The government in Nueva Odessa quickly realizes it holds the key to the survival of entire continents. Andinia immediately erects gigantic, futuristic water intake stations and powerful pipelines. The country begins selling the purest meltwater to arid regions of Africa and Asia for astronomical sums. This monopoly brings hundreds of billions of dollars into the state treasury, firmly cementing its status as an absolute regional superpower. Huge, armored supertanker water carriers depart daily from the deep water ports of San Jorge Gulf. Each such convoy is strictly guarded by modern missile frigates and attack submarines, as the valuable cargo attracts international mercenary syndicates. Water becomes the main and most protected export commodity of the Patagonian state. In parallel, local agriculture undergoes a true technological revolution. In gigantic closed hydroponic complexes hidden deep underground, thousands of tons of fresh vegetables are grown year-round. Artificial lighting completely replaces the sun, reliably ensuring absolute food independence for this harsh nation, isolated from the rest of the world. Traditional mounted shepherds rapidly evolve into true cyber gauchos. They now herd vast flocks of genetically modified, extremely frost-resistant sheep. And these stern riders move on heavy robotic mechanical horses whose servo motors hum quietly against the backdrop of the howling, icy Patagonian wind. These steel steeds, equipped with high-capacity solar panels and all-terrain titanium hooves, are ideally suited for the rocky, utterly impassable terrain of the Andean foothills. They know no fatigue, require no feed, and can carry heavy weaponry for patrolling the most remote mountain passes. In icy mountain gorges, top-secret data centers of the world's largest corporations are safely located. Deep caves, naturally cooled by constant sub-zero temperatures and squalls, become ideal storage for global digital archives. No foreign spy can penetrate these secure icy vaults. Thanks to such infrastructure, Andinia deservedly becomes the world capital of cryptography and cybersecurity. The state massively attracts the best white-hat hackers from across the planet with astronomical salaries. Here, at the edge of the world, they create sophisticated encryption algorithms that are impossible to crack even with the latest quantum computers. Elite universities in Nueva Odessa annually graduate brilliant programmers who create absolutely invulnerable digital defense systems for transnational corporations and foreign governments. Intellectual capital becomes another powerful weapon of the Republic, allowing the tiny state to dictate its harsh terms on the global technological stage. The Republic's economic influence subtly but steadily spreads far beyond South America through a complex network of shadow financial institutions. Nueva Odessa's offshore banks coolly lend to African regimes and Asian corporations, transforming Andinia into an invisible puppet master, pulling the strings of the global world economy. The Andean peso is deservedly considered one of the most reliable and stable currencies in the world. Unlike the outdated dollar, it is backed not by an ephemeral gold reserve, but by real cubic meters of the purest glacial water and gigawatts of wind energy. Imagine a currency whose value is literally carved in ice. Diplomatic relations with immediate neighbors remain consistently tense but extremely pragmatic. Santiago and Buenos Aires grind their teeth in impotent malice, yet no one in their right mind would risk quarreling with an absolute water and energy monopolist. Thirst, as is known, quickly tames any geopolitical pride. In March 2010, a harsh diplomatic incident occurs. A brand-new Argentine reconnaissance drone brazenly violates sovereign airspace over the majestic Perito Moreno Glacier, attempting to photograph secret hydraulic structures. Generals in Buenos Aires anticipated triumph, but their joy was short-lived. The intruder is instantly shot down by the experimental Iron Beam of the South air defense laser system in a matter of seconds. Charred debris falls into an icy crevasse, clearly demonstrating to the entire world Andinia's overwhelming and undeniable technological superiority. This was a clear signal. Patagonian skies are strictly closed to outsiders. Buenos Aires falls into hysterics and lodges a formal protest at the UN Tribune, demanding immediate sanctions. However, the world community shamefully ignores these cries, preferring to remain diplomatically silent and not provoke the influential Patagonian hawks. Who wants to be left without advanced microchips because of a downed Argentine toy? The young Republic's navy, consisting of heavy nuclear icebreakers and radar-invisible stealth corvettes, completely and undivided controls the strategic Drake Passage. These cold, leaden waters are patrolled around the clock, transforming the planet's most dangerous maritime artery into an inland lake of the harsh southern state. Henceforth, no commercial vessel or war cruiser can pass from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean without paying a substantial transit fee to Andinia's treasury. Captains meekly transfer millions of dollars for the right of safe passage, enriching Nueva Odessa's already swelling budget. Such audacity provokes open, harsh displeasure from China. The Red Dragon's global trade routes critically depend on free navigation in the far south of the planet, especially after a series of climate catastrophes in the Panama Canal. Beijing decides to teach the upstarts a lesson and dispatches a carrier strike group to the Patagonian coast. Simultaneously, Beijing attempts to exert colossal economic pressure, threatening an embargo. But Andinia responds with icy calm. It threatens the immediate freezing of all assets of Chinese technology corporations in its impregnable banks and the complete shutdown of their servers in Patagonian data centers. Checkmate, comrades. The conflict is quietly and without much fuss resolved through a mutually beneficial compromise behind closed doors. This incident once again convincingly proves to the entire world a small but incredibly formidable and technologically advanced republic will have to be reckoned with by absolutely everyone, even the most formidable superpowers of Asia. Within the country itself, political life literally boils. Fierce parliamentary debates between ultra-conservative Zionists and pragmatic techno-libertarians are broadcast live to the entire world. They argue hoarsely and fiercely about taxes on crypto farms and quotas for new repatriates from a burning Europe. But do not be deceived by this democratic facade. Despite sharp internal disagreements, in the face of the slightest external threat, society unites cohesively, casting aside all disputes. Disparate factions instantly transform into a single, unbreakable steel fist, ready to pulverize anyone who encroaches upon their sovereignty. The cult of a strong, invincible army and advanced science permeates the entire education system from an early age. In Andean schools, children deeply study neural networks and combat robotics alongside the heroic history of the Great Exodus. Every teenager here knows how to assemble a drone and quote the Torah. Meanwhile, Andinia's ambitious Antarctic program reaches truly fantastic heights. Deep beneath the multi-kilometer ice of the South Pole, the first fully autonomous city research station, New Zion, is secretly being built. This is a colossal engineering triumph, hidden from the curious eyes of orbital satellites beneath layers of permafrost. In these harsh, isolated bunkers, top scientists conduct bold experiments in terraforming and creating entirely closed ecosystems. While the rest of the world is mired in local resource wars, Andinia seriously and methodically prepares for the inevitable colonization of Mars, refining survival technologies in an icy hell. The Republic's National Space Agency regularly launches heavy spy satellites from its own top-secret cosmodrome built on the cliffs of Tierra del Fuego. This orbital constellation provides the country with an independent, impenetrable navigation and quantum communication system, allowing Andinian generals to see every move of their potential adversaries. In the field of medicine, Patagonian geneticists achieve a true, astonishing breakthrough. In closed laboratories, they create unique, personalized medicines for oncology and genetic mutations previously considered absolutely incurable in the rest of the world. Their advanced genome editing technologies leave the lauded clinics of Switzerland and the USA far behind. Elite, deeply classified medical tourism brings the state tens of billions of dollars annually. Aging oil sheikhs, silicon billionaires, and European monarchs secretly flock on private jets to closed clinics in Patagonia. They are willing to pay any amount for radical life extension and artificial rejuvenation. However, even in this high-tech utopia, social inequality remains an extremely acute, explosive problem. The indigenous Mapuche Indians, whose ancestors once helped the first colonists survive, are increasingly loudly and aggressively demanding greater political representation in the highest echelons of power and a fair share of resource exports. Periodically, peaceful but persistent protests erupt in the cold streets. The pragmatic government of Nueva Odessa strives to resolve these conflicts with extreme care, granting unprecedentedly broad autonomy to indigenous reservations. Local chiefs receive colossal budgets for the preservation of their language and unique ancient culture. Imagine a surreal scene. Revered indigenous shamans in traditional attire and Orthodox rabbis with payos sit together on the government's ethics council. This closed body rigorously controls all development of artificial intelligence, preventing dangerous cybernetic deviations. This unique, truly paradoxical synergy of ancient mystical traditions and cold neon futurism creates an unparalleled, captivating flavor for the entire Andinian society. Here, ancient ancestral rituals organically merge with advanced technologies, forming their own strikingly powerful vision of the coming cybernetic future. Every year, millions of tourists from around the globe desperately dream of entering this mysterious, closed country. However, its immigration control and visa regime remain among the strictest, most paranoid, and virtually insurmountable barriers on our entire planet. Those rare fortunate ones who do manage to legally cross this meticulously guarded border are literally stunned. They are instantly struck by the shocking contrast between Patagonia's pristine, harsh wilderness and the incredibly advanced, almost alien technologies permeating everything around them. Imagine monumental black fortresses, ruthlessly carved directly into the glittering ancient glaciers of the Andes. They are scanned round the clock by autonomous combat drones, while just a couple of kilometers away, vast genetically modified herds of woolly cyber sheep graze peacefully and unhurriedly. Elegant, ultra-strong wind turbines, as tall as the Eiffel Tower, majestically and absolutely silently rotate their blades against the backdrop of the endless yellow pampas. It is they who day and night reliably power the shining neon megacities nestled in rocky deep-water fjords with colossal green energy. The vibrant, never-ceasing nightlife of Nueva Odessa pulsates to the hypnotic, trance-like rhythm of heavy electronic tango. This unique musical style is bizarrely and boldly mixed with melancholic, lingering klezmer motifs emanating from every dark alley of the port city. In dimly lit, smoke-filled bars, stern, gray-haired veterans of Andinia's elite special forces gather. Flexing their gleaming titanium cybernetic prosthetics, they hoarsely and intently discuss over a glass of strong whiskey the latest, highly alarming reports from the distant Antarctic front and the maneuvers of the Chinese fleet. Modern Andinia is living, breathing proof of the incredible fact of how an unyielding, fanatical will to live can transform everything. It has turned an utterly lifeless, frozen, icy desert into a thriving, technologically advanced, and heavily armed, impregnable oasis. Today's Republic of Andinia stands poised at the threshold of an entirely new historical era, maximally tense. This harsh state coolly and calculatingly prepares to become the main, absolutely dominant player in the coming, inevitable, and brutal global battles for fresh water and resources. When the global climate crisis finally reaches its destructive, deadly apex, the rules of the game will change forever. It is this ice-wind-swept country that will begin to dictate its harsh terms of survival with extreme rigidity and uncompromising resolve to the entire vast Southern Hemisphere of our planet. Neighboring Argentina and Chile Utterly exhausted by endless defaults, inflation, and rampant political corruption, merely observe the success with impotent malice. They gaze with burning envy at the distant, shining neon lights of their powerful and utterly unattainable southern neighbor. In the bustling squares of Buenos Aires, vociferous radical politicians remain incredibly popular, solemnly promising the impoverished electorate to reclaim ancestral Patagonian lands. But absolutely everyone, from generals to taxi drivers, clearly understands that this is merely empty, unsubstantiated populism. Any hypothetical attempt at military invasion of these cold lands is doomed beforehand to a harsh, bloody failure. For Andinia has long possessed a secret nuclear status about which its enemies whisper fearfully with unconcealed primal shuddering in the closed corridors of UN headquarters. CIA military analysts confidently assert that intercontinental ballistic missiles are securely hidden in ultra-deep granite shafts directly beneath the picturesque Mount Fitzroy. Their deadly warheads are aimed around the clock at the capitals of any potential aggressors who dare to infringe upon the sovereignty of this proud republic. Absolutely no one in their right mind wants to test this terrifying apocalyptic theory on their own skin. The entire world community cowardly prefers to maintain a fragile diplomatic peace, smile at summits, and dutifully, as if on schedule, purchase invaluable Andinian fresh water. This truly fantastic story of Baron de Hirsch and his audacious, mad plan brilliantly proves one truth. Harsh, merciless geography is by no means a final verdict, but merely a blank canvas for the realization of the greatest and most ambitious human aspirations. A small handful of desperate settlers, stripped of their historical homeland, brilliantly and decisively outmaneuvered lumbering great powers. They managed to create from scratch a powerful, prosperous state where for centuries only emperor penguins, cold winds, and the most tenacious mountain lichens had survived. These stern people did not meekly and plaintively await mercy from cruel European fate or the weak, useless League of Nations. They simply loaded their Mausers and, with cold steel in hand, firmly took their future into their own calloused hands. The Andinia Plan, once a cheap, anti-Semitic bogeyman for impressionable Argentine generals, in this reality turned into an absolute, unequivocal triumph of the human spirit. It is a grim celebration of iron discipline and advanced engineering over the boundless emptiness and cold of the harsh Patagonian land. This captivating alternate historical branch makes us deeply ponder the incredible fragility of familiar state borders. It vividly demonstrates the frightening unpredictability of global political processes, where one decisive step can forever collapse the established, seemingly unshakable geopolitical order across an entire continent. Imagine one bold, utterly unconventional decision, coolly made in a smoke-filled Parisian study of the 19th century, forever redrew the political map of the world. Baron de Hirsch's financial genius irrevocably altered the balance of power on the planet, creating a technological superpower literally out of nothing. South America will never again be associated by the rest of the world solely with the hot tropical forests of the Amazon and carefree Brazilian carnivals. Its far south is now a grim, high-tech realm of merciless ice, piercing wind, and utterly cold, calculating steel. Right now, stern cyber gauchos continue their endless, silent vigil on the snow-covered Andean borders. They peer with extreme vigilance into the blinding, howling blizzard through the built-in military thermal imagers of their tactical helmets,
reliably guarding the peace of the most closed country in the Southern Hemisphere.
Their heavy, armored robotic horses tread absolutely silently on the frozen, rocky ground of the foothills. These steel beasts are ready at any moment, at a rider's short radio command, to break into a swift, deadly gallop towards any intruder of the sovereign Andinian borders, leaving enemies no chance. Meanwhile, in the deep underground bunkers of Nueva Odessa, quantum supercomputers hum rhythmically and menacingly. They continuously calculate millions of complex scenarios for the development of the global economy and predict the consequences of impending climate catastrophes solely for the benefit of their pragmatic government. Andinia does not merely passively survive in tense anticipation of an impending apocalypse. It methodically, calculatingly, and with extreme coolness designs a future in which it is historically destined to play the role of humanity's savior, monopolistically owning the most critically important resources of a rapidly dying planet. The monopolistic export of crystal-clear fresh water becomes the Republic's most powerful tool of geopolitical influence. This invaluable resource forever replaces outdated, crude gunboat diplomacy, allowing Patagonian politicians to bloodlessly bring entire continents severely suffering from global drought to their knees. Countries that rashly refuse to vote in support of Andinia at UN sessions suddenly face inexplicable technical failures. Desalination plants break down in their ports, and in the taps of vast megacities, a total drought mysteriously arises, provoking mass bloody popular uprisings. This soft, yet absolutely ruthless economic stranglehold makes the Southern Republic virtually untouchable on the world diplomatic stage. It instills in its exhausted Latin American neighbors not only sincere, deep respect, but also a genuine, soul-chilling, will-paralyzing political fear. In the bright, securely protected schools of Nueva Odessa, children sing the national anthem every morning with genuine pride. These solemn lines glorify the harsh winds of untamed Patagonia and the unyielding, cold wisdom of the founding fathers, who gifted their exiled people this icy paradise. From infancy, they clearly understand that their homeland is a besieged high-tech fortress surrounded on all sides by eternal ice and alien black envy, and each of them is ready to unconditionally defend it until their last breath, finger on the trigger. Andinia's powerful cultural influence aggressively penetrates all corners of the world through dark cinematic masterpieces and hypnotic electronic music. Advanced, life-changing technologies bear the indelible imprint of harsh Patagonian aesthetics, rapidly captivating the minds of millions of young people. The aesthetic of Patagonian cyberpunk quickly becomes the main global trend of modernity. Advanced youth in rainy Tokyo and bustling New York massively wear stylized high-tech ponchos with smart heating, emulating the legendary riders of the southern foothills and genuinely admiring their indomitable spirit. Hollywood directors film blockbuster multi-million-dollar movies about the heroic defense of the Andean passes in the bloody 30s. They deliberately romanticize the harsh image of the first Jewish rebels, transforming a brutal war for independence into a beautiful global myth of indomitable human will. But behind this beautiful, polished cinematic image lies the extremely harsh reality of a militarized nation. This is a society that every second of its new history paranoidally prepares for total war, for physical survival in a world where any weakness is inevitably punished by death. Baron Maurice de Hirsch, whose remains now honorably rest in a monumental granite mausoleum on the shore of the roaring Southern Ocean, could rightly be proud of his incredible creation. His grandiose historical adventure forever rewrote the harsh rules of the global geopolitical game. His utopian dream of a safe haven materialized in the form of an impregnable icy bastion, bristling with ballistic missiles. This outpost confidently and unequivocally dictates its unyielding will to an entire continent, forcing even the most powerful global empires of today to reckon with it. And as long as the famous Patagonian winds blow across the endless pampas, rotating the blades of colossal turbines with a deafening roar, the steel heart of Andinia will beat steadily and with immense power. This high-tech, icy colossus of the South will never again in history allow itself to be caught off guard. The Republic of Andinia is a truly unique paradox state, born from a cheap 20th-century anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Today, it has transformed into the most tangible, technologically advanced, and genuinely frightening reality of our alternate world, where only the strongest and most unyielding survive. Gazing into the cold, leaden waters of the stormy Drake Passage from the decks of their invisible nuclear destroyers, the stern Andinians know one thing with absolute certainty. They truly stand at the very edge of the world. But this harsh, frozen land now belongs solely and forever to them. Thank you for delving into this chilling, icy story with us. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss even more captivating bifurcation points and dark, unsolved mysteries of our alternate geopolitics.